Well, I'm happy to be joined by a really good friend of mine. We've met each other a couple years ago. Actually, Adam and his wife came to a church launch out of a get to know you type thing at a place near our house or where we planned our church. And since then, become such good friends. And Adam has some uh, some really incredible things that he's done. Man, I'm tempting, trying to keep myself being tempted from like having you tell the Choco Taco story and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to kind of refrain from that unless some reason you feel it fits in. But um, one of the first kind of insights that I saw into Adam's life, as far as not only his walk with God, but his just desire to help humanity, was at an event where he was honored as the volunteer of the year for nationwide, worldwide, I guess, with the Salvation Army. So it was a great event, and that's kind of let me see a little more of his life. So I asked Adam to step in and join me on this journey that I'm on, um, talking to men who have kind of reordered, repurposed, found purpose again in their life after we hit that middle of the road. And so I want Adam to share something with us. So why don't you just step in and maybe introduce a little more of yourself, and if you want to just jump into, maybe I sent you a list of questions. If there's somewhere you want to start, let's go ahead and just jump in and start.
Yeah, no, first off, I appreciate the introduction and listen, it always goes both ways with a friendship, so I appreciate that in a great way. You have no idea. Having great men in your life is great men that are really trying to do great things is a blessing. And I think that, oftentimes that's not something that we see. So, it's something that we feel, and it's something that in time you start to recognize. But in your series here, that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to sort of highlight is, there are times in your life where you'll go through seasons where you meet people, and those people may or may not be bringing value in your life. And so in this part of my life, this is this transition, over my 20s and 30s and 40s to, friends that maybe had our interest in mind, but not his interest in mind. And then over time, you start to realize that maybe that friendship is not necessarily, bringing value to your life or glorifying God. And those kind of changes are hard. It's hard to make friends when you're at this point in life. And so when somebody comes in that's really great, you have to really honor that in a big way. So I appreciate the intro. Um, a little about me. I'm a dad. I'm a father of four boys. They're all up and out, so we're empty nesters doing our thing, my wife and I, Shelley, and certainly I think that having children and seeing them all the way through from that tiny little thing, the very first one where you're just not sure where they're going to make it in their life, where are they going to go, what are they going to do, what could you possibly do right, all the things that you could do wrong rush through your mind in like that one first hour standing in the hospital to the time where they leave the last time, and they come for dinner and hopefully to borrow the laundry machine, right? And so it's kind of the journey that we're talking about that happens so quickly in just 20 years time. And so I love this topic that you're on right now. So you know, I had a lot of different notes that I've taken here, and you can just take it however you want to go. But I think that you're right off the cuff. This question that we talked about, how did the mindset change when we kind of entered the 40s? Kind of just really caps things off. This is a solid question in the start of transition. We think about our 20s. We're in this position where in our 20s we're figuring ourselves out. And myself, I was raised in a Christian home. And in that Christian home, we went out and we did church. We did church. We didn't live church. We went on Sunday. We checked the box, and that was about what we did. And so in my 20s, I did not have good discipline around study or church or anything like that. And certainly, I was living my life. I was living my life. I'm going to be very clear about that. Nobody else was helping me with that, and I wasn't allowing anybody in, and that's a tricky statement. In my 30s, I start to sort of realize that uh, it's hard to do life by yourself. And I had an opportunity to do some volunteer work. And as you do when you get older, you start to look for other things to sort of fill the void that is there because you tried to live life by yourself. And so that for me turned into working with community. And so what happened was I started working with community, and at some point in my 30s, I was on a disaster scene. I've been to about 200 disasters in my volunteer time. So these disasters could be everything from tornadoes to floods, hurricanes, all kinds of things. And I happened to be at a, and forgive me if I get a little worked up in some of these because this all pours in the heart. So
Yeah, nope, no problem.
when we're here and we're in these disasters, life is what's impacted. A lot of times we see in the news the number of houses that are torn down, but I came upon a home, and remember it was very early on. I just knew how to work a canteen. They took some food to some people, and they didn't have a house, and so we took some food to them. That's what we do, right? And got to this woman's home, and I walked up, and she was standing in her kitchen. You could see the kitchen from the street because all the walls had been torn down in this
Hmm.
tornado. And so I walked up to her, and she was standing in the kitchen cleaning, and I thought that was odd. And I hadn't had any real training in working with people, and so I went in and I said, my name's Adam, and I'm here to help and have some food for you. And she just kept cleaning, and then I said a little louder. Maybe she didn't hear me, and she kept cleaning. And so finally I said, ma'am, can I just leave this food on the counter? And she spun around and she said, you do whatever you need to do.
Hmm.
And I thought, well, what's happening here? So I said, I'd love to be able to spend a minute with you. And I said, why are you cleaning? And she said, it's the only thing I have control of right now.
Wow.
Because today I lost my home, I lost my
Hmm.
husband, and I lost my children.
Wow.
Wow.
Hmm.
So in that moment, I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any good training on the topic. I knew how to hand out food and drinks when somebody needed a drink because they were in a disaster.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, I knew that I was going to have to go get some real training. And it turns out that training put me on a chaplaincy track that really changed my life.
Hmm.
And frankly, the lives of a lot of people I've been able to touch through that experience. And so, you know, we talk about these mirror moments where you look in the mirror, or you look at yourself, or you look at the situation, and you say, "What am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, was I really set on this earth to go hand out some food and some water, or was
Yeah.
I put into this
Yeah.
position at this moment to go figure out how to go touch people and
Yeah.
connect with
Yeah.
people and help lives?" And so that really was the moment in time that I went from I'm living my life by myself to I'm starting to figure out how to fill this gap to I think I found a God purpose.
Yeah. 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 Um, you mentioned this idea, and there's so many directions we could go. What you talk about hitting this point in life, of course, that moment with that lady, hitting this point in life where you just start reevaluating things and what really matters, what really fulfills. And I think a lot of guys our age and as they get older, they just start to lose that focus, lose that purpose. And I think maybe it's because in some ways we just turn inward and we just look to ourselves, and that's empty looking inside. So
Yeah.
tell us about a little bit more how I think you began to find this new purpose when you started looking outside of Adam and started looking to other people. And that's sometimes hard for us men who think we've got it all, we're macho, we can figure it all out our own.
Yeah, no, that's right. Well, I mean, as humans, we're social animals. Like it or not, we're social animals. Now,
Yeah.
men, we inclined to be a little more pulled in. when you're in society, there's emotion out there. And so
Hmm.
emotion's hard for guys, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so what I found is that when I was out, listen, in my 20s, I was drinking a lot. I was out late, all the things that, nothing good happens outside after midnight, right? And
Yeah.
so a lot of nights after midnight. And so, it was a very empty feeling. And so as I started to find time to fill, as you mentioned, as we started to find time to fill that void, that space, we tried a lot of different things. And bowling is no better than any of the other ones, right? It's
Yeah.
a thing. You're out with the people, but that's fun and all, but at some point you start to do things that you discover fill you with joy.
Yeah.
And we think about the Lord coming and filling us.
Hmm.
And if you never had that feeling, then it's time to get some praying in. But if you had
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
feeling, you know that you feel warm in a cold day, and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
feel this like almost a well up, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that as I started to engage in my 20s, very empty. In my 30s, this kind of mixed situation, and then later in my 30s, and certainly through my 40s, as I worked really hard in the community, um, each of those times that I would go out and I would be God led and I would be in the community facing outward, I felt great. I came home and I slept better, and I had better relationships with my wife and better
Yeah.
conversations with the people around. And at some point, just being this kind of social group that we are, you tend to turn that way is
Yeah.
naturally, right?
Yeah.
And then you got to figure out what that is. And what that feeling is the love of
Hmm.
God. And so
Yeah.
it's much easier to love other people when you're loved, when you
Yeah.
realize that
True.
you're loved and you open up for love, and when you do that, it's amazing. And so some of the other things that I do outside of chaplaincy work and disasters is mentorship.
Mm.
And so in my career, I'm lucky enough to have a very large staff, and so in that staff we'll come together, and I have some good mentorships. And when you lead with love in a mentorship and not lead with the business necessity first, it's a different conversation. It's a different kind
Mm.
of mentorship. Those people realize greater success. And
Yeah.
so I think the short answer to your question there, at some point in time, when we're working as men to start to fill that void, or to start to look to the outside, follow your heart, follow the feeling, because ultimately nobody wants to live in stress. Stress
Yeah.
is not, we don't seek stress.
Right.
And so, but it's hard to shed if you don't have those other qualities going on in your
Yeah.
life. And so
Definitely.
ultimately, that's the thing,
Okay.
the feeling, the emotion that helped me to understand and give me the guidance I needed to continue in that direction.
Okay. Good. I kind of find a little bit of mixed bag when I mention the word legacy around 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds. I think that in some ways, I think that's like they don't want to think about it because they want to pretend they're not reaching that point in life where um, it's time to start thinking about that.
Yeah,
Maybe they left that the old guys got to worry about that. Well, I don't think 40s and 50s, even now 60s. I don't think you still got years left, Lord willing,
yeah.
and you take care of yourself. But when is when did it come that your mind started making that turn, or if you even think about it that much? This idea of legacy, and what does that mean to you?
Yeah. So a couple things. Legacy to me means a few things, and I can remember the moment that I realized that I was somehow having a legacy.
Hmm.
I don't think about it. I don't love the idea. I don't love the idea that I'm turning any corners. So for me, I'm gonna keep marching ahead until I'm like smashing a wall. But
Yeah.
legacy for me is this like ripple effect of how you leave. You know the ripple, right? You drop the bead in the
Hmm.
water, and you have these waves, and so legacy for me is this ripple effect of the faith and integrity that you're living out. How do people think about
Hmm.
you? What does that look like? And
Yeah.
ultimately, those waves begot waves. And if there's a shore nearby, it's going to cause more ripples coming back at you, right? And so
Hmm.
for me, that's what legacy is about. It's less about your accomplishments or the people that you carried forward. It's about those ripples. And so I can remember a time I was happened to be in India. I was It was late. I had been there for 2 or 3 weeks with work, and I was had to give a speech and talk to this team and cheer them up about moving ahead. And I just had this moment where I was just speaking off the cuff, where I just felt completely overwhelmed. And I was talking to most of my staff there in their mid 20s, the 30s, and started talking about the importance of how you care for others in the workplace.
Hmm.
And that started to sort of turn into, how do you care for others in your community? Which turned into, what are you doing here? Like, what are you
Yeah.
actually doing here? And then I started to look around and having this conversation with this young group, and they were just locked in.
Hmm.
And there were about 100 people in that room. And so afterwards, after this, what I felt was an awkward conversation, the number of people that came up and said, I think I'm doing it wrong. I think I'm thinking
Wow.
about my career and my family wrong.
Hmm.
And so we started to have these conversations, and I looked around at all these young people, and I thought, I think these people are going to carry this message forward.
Yeah.
And it was not my intent.
Hmm.
And so it was one of those moments, like, clearly God was running the show here. And I looked around and I thought, I couldn't have done it better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that they're going to go away and do something about it. And so that is legacy,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
That is that ripple effect that you're
Hmm.
pouring out. And again, if you're doing it by yourself, you're trying to define your legacy. This isn't your definition. You don't get to decide.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. What's one of the hardest things you've had to face? One of the biggest questions you've had to face as you've gotten older? Is there something that's kind of been difficult to
Yeah. Well, with
push through?
age comes responsibility, I think. And for me, it's a question of um, moving from the question is I face with often is when you care for people, it's hard to give bad messages, hard to give hard messages.
Mm.
And we see this, we see this time and time again in the Bible where people aren't willing to stand up to say the hard thing, but when they do,
Yeah.
it always pans out, right? Every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And so the hard question for me is always, how do you give hard messages in a loving way in a time when people's lives where they're in a varied state. We're in
Mm.
a crazy time in our world where some people understand what's happening and they're progressing, and other people are struggling big time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's really kind of the question that I'm oftentimes faced with,
Mm.
whether that's layoffs at work or whether that's having an honest, candid conversation that someone is um, doing the wrong thing, and are you going to
Yeah.
stop and call them out on it, right? In a
Yeah.
loving way. You could be a jerk about it, but
Yeah.
there's an approach. And so I think for me, it's how do you effectively carry somebody forward and give a lot of love, in the face of adversity.
That's good. Yeah, that's important, especially when it comes to mentoring and working with people that you're trying to lead. Um, that's so crucial. Especially, I've just realized the way I think about things now, older, and I look back at people. I remember when I was 20, 25, 28, and the way the perspective that they have on life. My perspective is so different now. It's because I've
Yeah,
lived that. I've been through that. And I wish there was some way, I don't know why God set it up this way, but I wish there was some way that my mindset now at 51, almost 52, I could take that back to when I was 24, 25.
right.
I think I would do things differently, I guess. I would hope I would. I'd probably make some of the same mistakes just because I'm human, but I think
Sure.
that's so crucial, our the way our mindset changing and be able to pass that down and teach people, mentor people beneath us or coming behind us, I should say.
Sure.
Yeah.
You've talked in the past about, if you face those failures or face those questions, or, for me, the hard conversation is recognizing your priorities. It's
Mm.
recognizing those moments of, um, the moments of what you can do to make a difference. And priorities can be funny, right?
Yeah.
Deciding to go out to dinner or not going out to dinner uh, could change the way that something occurs. Like literally last week, and it was the craziest thing, Jonathan. I had a friend in town, and he was from far out of town, and we went to dinner, and he's a vegetarian, and we were looking desperately for a place to eat. And Shelly said, "I'll just cook." I said, "No, it's late." So we end up at this restaurant, and none of us wanted to be there. We just were eating,
Yeah.
and we're sitting at the table, and the lady's just come along, bebopping, and she says, "How can I help?" I said, "You're the most cheerful thing at night here. Like, this is so late at night. I'm sure I'm keeping you open." And she's like, "It's my son's 10th year of being cancer free."
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Wow, that is great." So
Yeah.
I said, "What cancer?" And she said, "Leukemia." And I was like, "Ooh." I had just
Hmm.
lost about 10 years ago my nephew to leukemia, my
Hmm.
brother's son. And so I was worried. You said leukemia, that it was a terrible situation. And she said, "No, it happened to be great." And we went on about our meal and whatever. And she came to check out. And when she checked out, she had brought me back my credit card, and she said, "Mr. Minnie, is your sister Amanda?" And I said, "Yeah, it is. It's Amanda. Why do you ask?" And she says, "She was my, so that's my sister-in-law." She said, "That was my cancer buddy."
Oh, wow.
And so they had met at
Wow.
Children's Hospital, and it was that lady's 10-year anniversary
Oh, my goodness.
of her
Wow.
of her 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 son having
It's amazing.
become cancer free. And so it was like this full circle. Like, why did I end up at that table? I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
ultimately, like, you don't know, and you have to get out there, and the priorities aren't what you think they are.
Hmm.
And so when you think about your priorities in life, for me, that could be just the smallest things. The priority that I have set in my life, and what I'm kind of calling out here, is say yes. Say
Hmm.
yes to the opportunity.
Yeah.
Be mindful. Set, have
That's
your
good.
financial priorities and those kind of things. But if your priorities stuff, you're not going to say yes to opportunity. If your
Yeah.
priorities being in a safe space, you're not going to be
Hmm.
you're not going to have those opportunities. Your priorities are
That's good.
misset. Your priorities, so you got to really think hard about what your priorities are, and it is rarely things.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. That's so good. What another question? Who's been the biggest influence on you, whether second half of life or maybe going into it? Just somebody that you kind of look to, that's really kind of giving you some direction.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a fellow by the name of Art Goodall. Colonel Art Goodall was his name, and there's a couple of great mentors in my life, so I shouldn't just call out Art, but Art was the one that sort of turned the corner for me a little bit.
Hmm.
So, Colonel Art was a Purple Heart winner, gold, Silver Star, I should say a winner award recipient,
Yeah.
and he worked in the Pentagon. He was a munitions and systems procurement officer, which effectively means they come up with wild ideas and see if these defense contractors can figure out how to fulfill them. So really interesting job. Super creative guy. Super creative guy. Um, when I first met him, very stern, very strict. I always thought this guy probably is not a follower of Jesus. He I don't think so. This is not. He didn't strike me as the soft guy that you might think.
Yeah.
Is the religious type or so. I don't know what if there's a type there, but if there is, he wasn't it. And
Hmm.
so over the years, I got to know Art a little bit, and then a little more. And Art led with love. Art was the most organized fellow that I've ever met in my life, still to date. And really, what Art's passion was caring for the most marginalized.
Hmm.
And what he was all about is, some people are at the top and some people are at the bottom and some people are in the margin. And just a little bit of effort will get the people in the margin above the line quick.
Hmm. Wow.
And so his position was, you could give a little bit of hard love in a really fast way and impact a lot of people in a major way. And
Wow.
so I think that struck me, struck my nerve. First, it helped me, and I saw
Yeah.
how to do that. He gave a great demonstration on how to do that. So for being a mentor, he gave me a great roadmap to be a mentor.
Hmm.
And so that's
Wow.
something that you don't often get, right? You get to
Yeah.
see it
Yeah.
live and on yourself. And
Yeah.
he always delivered hard love. As a colonel in the
Hmm.
military, there was no soft
Yeah.
edges on that guy. So, but I came to find out that he was, he was on the board of his church. He was an elder at the church. He had
Hmm.
been a chaplain in his later years. He was spending a majority of his time in with people in the last hours of their life through
Hmm.
various programs through the VA, and so what don't judge a book by its cover, because those fellas that are willing to give you the hard news,
Yeah.
it might be coming with love. You just might not be ready to receive it as love, right? Because hard news is hard to receive, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
What what are what when people talk about you years from now? Oh, you got something else
Hold
you want
on.
to say?
I
Go ahead.
got one point. He used to
Okay,
tell me
good.
all the time, facts don't care about your feelings.
Okay, yeah.
And I love that term, because if you think about it, we we don't like to, as humans, we don't like to deal with the hard things, right?
Mm-mm.
And as
No.
men, we're already dealing with enough stress, and we're
Right.
already trying to do all the things. And so when you get punched in the face with something that is factual, it's pretty easy to bob and weave and try to not have that be the thing that's you, right? And so
Yeah.
when you can realize this is not an attack, this is not a
Yeah.
feeling,
Yeah.
this is the fact, and so
Right.
you can't argue with gravity.
No, that's true. That's true. Yeah. When you years from now, when people mention Adam Menne, what do you want them to say? What do you hope they'll say?
I hope that they will say a couple of things. I hope they'll say two things specifically. I hope that they will say Adam spent the time, every minute doing the best possible thing.
Hmm.
I try hard. There's only so much time in the day, and I try to fill all of it. And so I try desperately to plan that time out, and to be very deliberate about the time, and to do the things that ultimately matter. And so you won't find me sitting around watching a lot of TV or
Yeah.
sort of spinning in circles. I'm not doing stuff, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the first thing. And the second thing I would say is that that he gave that ripple, that
Mm.
he impacted me in a little bit of a way, and I went ahead and
Yeah.
carried that forward. I love the whole pay it forward initiative
Yeah.
of keep carrying it forward, and whether they recognize me for that or not, I don't really care about that part of it. What I care about is that somebody started the ripple and they're keeping it going. That's really what I
Yeah.
hope, that maybe
Yeah.
somebody will remember it. The next generation after us, they won't. That's okay. I'm
Yeah.
perfectly fine with that, as long as the
Mm.
ripple keeps going.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Um, Maybe this last thing will kind of help you speak to if there's something. I know I skipped through some of the questions
Yeah,
I'd
you're
given
fine.
you originally, but if I asked this, maybe this will help you kind of maybe bring in something that we hadn't covered that you really wanted to say. Um, but if you could just leave two different segments here talking to most people that are going to watch this are our age, a little older. That's kind of the target that I'm reaching. But there's this message could maybe trickle down to others coming behind us that aren't quite there and don't really understand why we think the way we think because of the stuff we've been through. But what's a message that you would like somebody to take away from this? A message you'd like to leave with somebody who may be dealing with some of the same things that you've fought through and worked through? Yeah, just kind of speak to that.
Yeah, no, I would give a couple of things here. First is, strength is not dominance.
Hmm.
Strength can be soft. Strength can be direct.
Yeah.
Strength can be open to listen. And so, it's discipline, it's humanity, it's loving with control.
Hmm.
Sometimes you can love and it doesn't have to feel great. You can
Yeah.
love in a really hard way. So strength is not dominance. And I think that as men, we have to dominate the situation.
Yeah.
And when we're dominating the situation, guess who's not,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so so strength comes in a lot of forms, and so I hope that men walk away with that. The second thing that I would say, and let me go one step further there in saying it's okay to say no to good things, but it's okay to if you're saying yes to the right things, right? That's sort of I
Mm.
think the
Yeah.
message that
Yeah. Yeah.
I like to say there, the saying, or I like to think in my head when
Hmm.
people ask you for things. Again, as men, we have a lot of opportunity to do things. As people, we have a lot of opportunity to
Yeah.
do things. 2026, 2025 here is ultimately putting us in this wild time where post COVID world, everything's opening back up, and there's just so much to do, and
Yeah.
so you don't say yes to everything.
Right. That's
Put
good.
down the social media, do the things, live your life, but don't say yes to everything. Say yes to the right
Mm.
things. And that's hard, right?
Yeah.
And so living that integrated life with your people is key. Living that same person that you are at home and work and ministry allows you to be in a situation where you can live you, and you
Right.
don't have to spend a lot of time or effort doing it. You just get to be
Yeah.
you, which is
Yeah.
really freeing. And so, in order to do that in a really clean way, brings me to my second point, which is how would I word this? Don't build a platform before you build your soul, before you build
Mm.
you. And
Yeah.
so, too often we get out there and we're so worried about, especially the young people that are coming through the social media era, like I did in the end here, of everybody's got eyes on you, and so the
Yeah.
way that they're perceiving you or viewing you, or who cares? You build your brand, and then
Yeah.
go build your platform. Then go tell people who you are, because reinventing yourself in public is hard,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
going from drinking and partying and doing your thing, and that's your brand, and then you got to start over. Starting over in your 30s is hard.
Hmm.
So go start there. Go get yourself right, and then go build your
Yeah.
brand. And so that's not how we generally live our lives. We go randomly do stuff, and then we end up building our brand, and then we figure out that's not the person I am, and so you got to go
Right.
do it again. So
Right.
you have an
Wow.
opportunity. I think you have, through Jonathan's platform here, you have an opportunity to sort of recognize that, especially younger people that are watching it, that you can build that brand right now.
Mm. Yeah. Do the right thing now. Choose to do the
Yeah.
right thing now. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. And I really appreciate what you've shared today. And is there anything else I didn't cover that you want to make sure you say, or
Yeah.
you'd like to share? If not, we can shut it down. But I want to give you an opportunity because I know you prepared some stuff and I want to make sure I cover it
Yeah.
for you.
No, no. Listen, the last thing I would say is this. Um, this is kind of just talking directly to the guys, right? I mean,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
for me, I think that uh, get yourself involved in a system of ministry that helps to sort of build that sustained leadership,
Mm.
that helps you build a strong faith and servant kind of compassion approach. Men love to lead.
Hmm.
And so if you're not going to do it alone, you shouldn't do it alone. Then you need to be in a system. And so whatever that is, whether that's a life group, whether that's a solid church group, whether that is a bunch of men that play golf in the most great way and spend a few minutes reading along the way. I went to a golf group once. None of the guys felt churchy, and love that term. And but you know what? They went out and played golf every Saturday, and then they read a scripture before every hole.
Oh wow.
And
Yeah.
I was like, feels pretty churchy to me. I don't know if you know, but church
Exactly.
happens all over. It's not a building, bro. And so, like, I think that's the topic. That's the thing that I would lead people with, is like, you literally find that space, find that program,
Yes.
build yourself into it, and be part of it, because that's where it's at. Because when the times get rough, you don't have the energy to do it by yourself.
So good. So good. Yeah. That's great. I appreciate all the sharing from your heart here today. I knew I wanted people to be introduced to you because these last couple of years, knowing you has been one of the greatest pleasures, blessings that God's put in my life, and I knew you had a lot to share, and I want to thank you for that. Um, and appreciate you jumping on here and giving a little bit of time. And we'll try to connect soon. I appreciate you having the time today.
I look forward to it, Jonathan. Thanks so much. Enjoy and be blessed, y'all.